You know when people say, it'll hit you out of nowhere? They're lying. It doesn't hit you all at once. It creeps in. First, a feeling. A scratch at the back of your mind. Then a weight in your chest that makes it hard to breathe. That's how it started for me. 2:43 a.m. The rain hammered against the windows in uneven, frantic taps, like a warning trying to break through. I sat up, my body moving before my mind could form the question. What's wrong? The house was too quiet. The kind of quiet that doesn't soothe you, it prickles your skin, makes the hair on your arms stand up. I slipped on my robe and walked down the hallway, every step on the hardwood floor sounding like a gunshot in the silence. Sophie's door was cracked open. At first, I thought she had fallen asleep with her lamp on again. Teenagers. Always forgetting something. But then I heard it, a soft, broken sob. I pushed the door open slowly, my heart already tearing itself apart inside my ribs. And there she was. My baby girl. Curled on the floor, knees pulled into her chest, shaking so hard I thought she might break apart. I ran to her. Dropped to my knees. Sophie? Baby, what's wrong? She looked up at me then, her face pale, eyes swollen red, lips trembling. And she handed me her phone without a word. At first, I didn't understand what I was looking at. An email thread. Subject: Operation New Life. The names at the top felt like punches to the gut. Marcus West. Brianna Lewis. My husband. My half-sister. I blinked hard, convinced I was dreaming or hallucinating. I wasn't. I scrolled. Each email more disgusting than the last. Plans to steal my company. Plans to paint me as mentally unstable. Plans to seize my assets. And the finale? A big, dramatic public divorce at the upcoming shareholder gala. I kept scrolling even though every fiber of my body screamed stop, please stop. But I didn't stop. Because the truth, no matter how ugly, needed to be faced. At the bottom of the email chain was a timestamp from earlier that day. Finalized everything. She won't see it coming. I almost feel bad. Almost. Tears blurred my vision. Almost. They almost felt bad for destroying me. I dropped the phone onto the carpet. My hands were shaking. Sophie whimpered beside me, like she was terrified of what I might do. I didn't know what to do, Mom, she choked out. I heard them talking. I saw the papers. I tried to tell you, but they said they'd have you locked up. That you'd never come back to me. Her voice broke on the last word. Never come back. My hands closed into fists so tight my nails dug bloody crescents into my palms. I pulled her into my arms, rocking her back and forth. I'm here, I whispered fiercely into her hair. And I'm not going anywhere. Ever. I kissed her temple and made a silent promise right there on the cold hardwood floor. They were going to pay. And I would make damn sure the whole world watched them fall. I didn't sleep that night. Or the night after. Instead, I sat awake, staring into the dark, the phone clutched in my hand, rereading those emails until the words burned themselves into my brain. They hadn't just planned to steal my company. They hadn't just planned to bankrupt me. They planned to erase me. To rip away everything I had spent my life building, my business, my name, my reputation, and leave me broken and alone. And the worst part? They laughed about it. She won't even fight back. She'll be too embarrassed. Claire's always been soft. That's why she'll lose. The more I read, the colder I became. I wasn't going to lose. They were. At dawn, I made myself a pot of black coffee so strong it could have stripped paint. I sat down at the kitchen table, Sophie's diary and phone beside me, and began my own investigation. Because if I was going to burn them to the ground, I needed more. Harder evidence. And trust me, they left a trail. It started with Sophie's screenshots. Dozens of them. All taken over the last 2 months. Some were emails. Others were texts disgusting little exchanges between Marcus and Brianna. Plans to forge my signature on legal documents. Photos of falsified psychiatric evaluations they were going to anonymously submit to the court. Bank transfers, large amounts disappearing from shared accounts into shady shell companies. And the worst? A recorded conversation Sophie had captured one night by accident when she left her phone recording during a FaceTime call. I listened, frozen, as Marcus's voice, the same voice that used to tell me I was beautiful, that I was his everything, said, "Once we have control of her shares, it's over. I will divorce her, institutionalize her if we have to, and the company is ours." And what about Sophie? Brianna's voice, nasal and sharp, cut in. Marcus laughed. Collateral damage. He's just a kid. She'll get over it. I had to pause the recording halfway through to dry heave into the kitchen sink. How had I been so blind? How had I let a monster sleep in my bed for years? I wasn't just betrayed. I was a fool. But not anymore. By 8 a.m. Nolan was sitting across from me. No small talk. No pity. Just pure, focused rage behind his professional mask. Claire, he said slowly, this is not just divorce. This is conspiracy. Fraud. Attempted theft. I slid another stack of printouts across the table. And I'm going to make sure they pay for every second of it. Nolan smiled thinly. I hope you're ready for war. I smiled back. I'm counting on it. Blueprint of revenge. We made a plan. A real plan. A cold, methodical blueprint to destroy them both. First, secure my assets. Oh, we created a private trust in the Cayman Islands under a dummy corporation. Oh, I transferred every personal asset I could. Savings, stocks, offshore accounts. Second, regain control of the company. Oh, I began secretly buying shares. Using multiple shell corporations and friendly investors Nolan arranged. Oh, quietly. Oh, strategically. Oh, share by share. Every time Marcus or Brianna siphoned a little more money, thinking they were weakening me, they were actually making it easier for me to tighten the noose. Third, gather undeniable proof. Oh, Sophie's recordings. Oh, financial documents. Oh, screenshots. Oh, emails. We organized everything into a digital folder titled simply, Judgment Day. Set the trap. Oh, let Marcus plan his big public divorce announcement at the gala. Oh, let him set the stage. Oh, let him invite every major shareholder, investor, business partner. The bigger the crowd, the bigger the fall. Just when I thought I had found all the rot, Nolan uncovered the final piece. A series of secret insurance policies Marcus had taken out on me. Policies that would pay out double in case of mental breakdown, permanent institutionalization, or death by misadventure. My hands went cold when Nolan showed me the papers. Marcus wasn't just planning to divorce me. He was hedging bets that I wouldn't survive it. Maybe not right away. Maybe not cleanly. But eventually, I was supposed to disappear quietly, conveniently. I looked at the photos of him and Brianna smiling, arms entwined, celebrating my destruction like they had already won. They wouldn't win. They wouldn't even get close. They were going to lose everything. And they were going to lose it in front of the whole damn world. It's funny the way grief works. You'd think finding out your husband and your own blood were conspiring to destroy you would ignite instant rage. But first there's just silence. A cold, echoing silence inside your chest where your heart used to be. I spent the next few days in a kind of mechanical fog. Functioning. Breathing. Moving through the motions of normal life. All while inside I was crumbling. I smiled when I passed Marcus in the hallway. I pretended not to notice when he kissed my cheek just a little too fast like he couldn't stand the contact. I laughed at Brianna's jokes when she stopped by under the guise of checking on me. I nodded along when she gushed about her new business investments, the ones funded with my money. I played the fool, because they needed me to be one for just a little while longer. But every second was a war. Every second was a knife in my own gut. The memories hit hard. Everywhere I looked in that house, ghosts stared back at me. The kitchen where Marcus proposed, dropping the ring in my coffee mug and laughing when I nearly choked on it. With the living room where Brianna and I painted the walls together, two sisters swearing blood oaths that nothing would ever tear us apart. The tiny framed photo in the hallway, Marcus lifting Sophie onto his shoulders at Disneyland, her giggling, his eyes shining with pride. Was any of it real? Or had it all been leading to this? The betrayal didn't just hurt because of the now. It hurt because it poisoned the past. Every happy memory was a lie rotting from the inside out. And it made me furious. The rage took over. I wasn't the woman they thought I was anymore. They remembered the Claire who gave second chances. The Claire who forgave too easily. The Claire who kept the peace, who swallowed her pride to keep a family together. But that Claire? She died the moment I opened Sophie's door that night. The woman that remained was someone else. Someone who could smile at her enemies across the breakfast table, knowing their days of freedom were numbered. Someone who could dance politely at board meetings while planting the seeds of their ruin. Someone who could weaponize her heartbreak into something sharper than any knife. Strategy. Silence. Destruction. Private moments of doubt. I won't lie. There were nights when doubt crept in. Nights when I sat in the shower with the water scalding my skin, sobbing so quietly I thought I might dissolve into nothing. Was I doing the right thing? Was it worth it? Was I becoming like them, cold, ruthless, calculating? But every time the doubt gnawed at me, I thought of Sophie. Her shaking hands. Her broken voice. They said they'd put you in a hospital and you'd never come back. I wasn't becoming like them. I was becoming someone who could protect herself and her daughter from people who had never really loved them to begin with. One night, about 2 weeks before the gala, I sat alone in my study, the city lights twinkling beyond the window. I poured myself a glass of wine, a rich, deep red, and opened a fresh notebook. At the top of the first page I wrote, "Rules of war, smile. Always. 2. Let them think they're winning. 3. Gather proof. 4. Own the narrative. 5. Strike only once. Strike so hard they never get back up." I closed the notebook with a sharp snap and leaned back in my chair. I had loved Marcus once. I had trusted Brianna once. But love without respect is just manipulation. Trust without truth is just a loaded gun pointed at your heart. They pulled the trigger. Now it was my turn to aim. By the time the first snow fell outside our house, my heart had already turned to ice. Every move I made after that night became calculated, measured, deadly. Marcus and Brianna had no idea they weren't playing chess anymore. They were playing checkers. And I was already 5 moves ahead. My first priority was simple. Take back the company. Quietly. I couldn't afford loud victories yet. I needed Marcus to feel invincible. The problem was Marcus thought he had already turned enough board members to his side. He thought the loyalty he bought with fancy dinners, gifts, and whispered promises would hold. He forgot something crucial. Loyalty that's bought can be bought again, just by someone who pays better. With Nolan's help, I approached key board members quietly, not with threats but with opportunity. In new investment deals. Private bonuses tied to long-term profits. Promises of stability once Marcus was removed for misconduct. I didn't frame it as betrayal. I framed it as business. By the end of 3 weeks, I had secured 63% of the board. Marcus didn't know it, but the throne he thought he was sitting on was already pulled out from under him. All that remained was timing. The second trap, building the case. Parallel to the corporate takeover, Nolan set up meetings with key contacts in federal law enforcement. A quiet word to the IRS about unusual account activity. A whisper to the FBI about potential wire fraud across state lines. It turns out Marcus's greed had made him sloppy. Hidden accounts offshore? Found. Fake consulting contracts to funnel money to Brianna? Exposed. Illegal asset transfers under false pretenses? Documented. And because Nolan was a genius at this, we didn't just collect evidence. We laid out a timeline so clean, so undeniable that any prosecutor would salivate. Every stolen dollar. Every forged signature. Every text message plotting my mental breakdown. All neatly packaged in a file we nicknamed the guillotine. The third trap, letting them hang themselves. With the end game approaching, I had to be careful not to tip them off. So I let Marcus and Brianna feel safe. I pretended to grow more tired at home, acting distracted, weary, just the way they wanted. I let them think their plan was working. They started taking bigger risks. Brianna started, accidentally, leaving documents out in my office. Unsigned contracts shifting my company shares. Marcus started making jokes at dinners about new beginnings and fresh starts in front of Sophie, testing how much she could take. They thought they were lords of their little collapsing empire. Meanwhile, every slip, every whispered conversation, every fake document, I was recording it all. A small victory, Sophie fights back. One night, about a week before the gala, Marcus pushed too hard. We were at dinner. Chinese takeout spread across the kitchen island. Brianna had stopped by uninvited, a wine glass dangling from her fingers. Marcus leaned over the counter towards Sophie, fake affection dripping from his voice. "You know, sweetie, sometimes it's better to accept when things change. When families evolve." Sophie set her fork down. Her hands trembled slightly, but her voice was strong. "You mean when people stab each other in the back?" she said coolly. Marcus froze. Brianna's wine glass tipped slightly. I looked down, pretending to focus on my egg rolls, but inside I was beaming with pride. Sophie wasn't just surviving anymore. She was sharpening her own knives. Countdown to destruction. As the final week before the gala unfolded, Everything fell into place. I finalized transferring my personal wealth into an untouchable offshore trust. I secured 78% of the company's voting power. I had the full cooperation of the IRS, the FBI, and my company's legal team. All that was left was setting the stage. Literally. I arranged for a surprise presentation to be added to the gala night lineup. Something Marcus thought would be a highlight reel of his career achievements. Instead, it would be his obituary. On the night of the gala, Marcus would think he was serving me public divorce papers. He would think he was humiliating me in front of every important business partner, investor, and friend we had. But the moment he took the stage, I would flip the script, and he would realize, too late, that he hadn't won anything. He had played himself, and the whole world was going to watch him fall. The final 48 hours before the gala felt like standing at the edge of a battlefield. Every second crackled with the heavy silence of a coming storm. Every smile I gave, every polite conversation I had, every good luck text I sent Marcus, all of it was a lie stitched into a perfect mask. Underneath, I was coiled rage and sharpened patience. Because I wasn't just fighting for myself anymore. I was fighting for Sophie. For every woman who ever stayed too long. For every mother who sacrificed everything for a family that used her up. I was fighting to end the cycle. Loudly. Final preparations. Nolan and I had turned my home office into our own private war room. Documents stacked neatly into thick binders labeled company share transfer fraud, forgery of mental health documentation, misappropriation of corporate funds, insurance fraud, and suspicious beneficiary changes. On the second monitor, a live feed ran from the security system Nolan's team had installed secretly inside the gala venue. Hidden cameras, hidden microphones. Every angle of that ballroom was covered. Every word Marcus and Brianna would say to each other before the curtain fell. Captured. I stared at the monitors, my chest tight. This was it. There would be no second chances. No retakes. I had one shot to end this beautifully, savagely, permanently. And I was ready. The night before the gala, I found a folded piece of paper slipped under my bedroom door. My heart skipped. I opened it carefully, hands shaking just a little. It was Sophie's handwriting, messy, hurried, but strong. I know you're scared. I am too. But you're the strongest person I know. You always have been. Even when you didn't feel like it. Even when you wanted to give up and didn't. You're not just fighting for you anymore. You're fighting for me too. So I can believe that the people who hurt us don't get to win. No matter what happens tomorrow, I'm proud to be your daughter. No more victims. Just warriors. Sophie. I sat on the bed and cried for the first time in weeks. Not the broken, aching tears I'd cried before. These were hot, cleansing tears. Tears of release. Tears of becoming. Because tomorrow wasn't just about revenge. It was about rebirth. The night before the gala, Marcus was unusually affectionate. He made dinner reservations at my favorite restaurant, brought home flowers, poured me wine. To anyone watching, he was the perfect husband. Loving, charming. If I didn't know better, I might have believed he was trying to reconnect. But I knew better. He wasn't celebrating us. He was celebrating himself. He thought he had won. That smug little smirk he tried to hide behind his wine glass? I filed it away in my mind. You're going to need that confidence tomorrow, darling, I thought grimly. You'll need something to hold on to when the floor collapses under you. Later that night, after Marcus fell asleep, I walked into Sophie's room. She was awake, staring at the ceiling. When she saw me, she smiled. A real one this time. Brave. Tired. But real. I sat on the edge of her bed and took her hand. No matter what happens tomorrow, I whispered, you are not alone. You are never going to be alone again. She squeezed my fingers tight. I know, she whispered back. And neither are you. We made a vow right there in the dark. No more victims. No more silence. No more fear. No more surrendering our lives to people who saw love as a weapon. From now on, we were warriors. And in the morning, we would show them exactly what that meant. The gala was held at the Grand Marquette Hotel, in a ballroom dripping with gold chandeliers, velvet drapes, and ice sculptures so tall they nearly scraped the ceiling. It was, as Marcus loved to say, a night to remember. He had no idea how right he was. I arrived late on purpose. Let him stew. Let him sweat. Let him think everything was falling perfectly into place. As I walked in, heads turned. Cameras flashed. Smiles brightened. On the outside I looked flawless. A custom midnight blue gown that hugged every curve. Her diamond earrings glittering like stars. A calm, polite smile on my lips. On the inside, I was steel wrapped in silk. I spotted Marcus almost immediately. He was holding court near the stage, surrounded by investors, laughing too loudly, a glass of champagne dangling from his fingers. Next to him, Brianna clung to his arm, wearing a dress so tight it looked like she had been vacuum sealed into it. She caught sight of me, and her smile faltered for just a second. Just a flicker. She should have trusted her gut. An hour into the evening, after drinks had flowed and chatter filled the air, Marcus tapped the microphone. The room fell into a hush. He grinned, that same oily grin he used to seduce me years ago, before I knew what a viper lived behind it. "Ladies and gentlemen," he began, voice smooth as syrup, "thank you for joining us tonight. Tonight isn't just about celebrating our company's success," pausing for polite applause. "It's about new beginnings." He looked directly at me. I raised my champagne glass in mock salute. He swallowed, just a flicker of nerves now. He continued, "As some of you may have heard, changes are coming. Important ones. And in the spirit of transparency, I thought it best to share some personal news. Here it comes." I kept my face neutral as Marcus reached into the podium and pulled out a thick envelope. "Tonight," he said, "I'm announcing my personal and professional separation from Claire West." A gasp rippled through the crowd. Fake sympathetic looks. Murmured gossip. Camera phones subtly raised. Brianna beamed at the sidelines like a pageant queen. Marcus continued, milking the moment. "It's a decision made with careful thought, and though difficult, it opens doors for a brighter future." He stepped toward me, envelope in hand, reaching out dramatically. And that's when the first screen behind him flickered to life. At first, people thought it was part of the presentation. Pictures of Marcus, Brianna, emails, laughter, bank statements, account transfers, forged documents, more laughter, audio clips, Marcus's voice, "She's too stupid to notice. We'll have it all by Christmas." Brianna's voice, "Hope she doesn't jump off a bridge when we're done with her." The room froze. Marcus turned, confused. Brianna's smile collapsed. On screen, a text conversation popped up. "Marcus, once the shares are transferred and the institution papers are filed, we ghost her. Easy. Brianna, she'll crack like a cheap wine glass." The audience erupted in gasps. The CEO of Bankwell Industries, seated front row, dropped his wine glass with a crash. Mrs. Cartwright, one of my oldest investors, clutched her pearls. A ripple of horror spread like wildfire across the ballroom. And then, the police entered. Federal agents in dark suits moved swiftly through the crowd. 2 officers stepped onto the stage. One spoke into a microphone, voice cutting through the stunned silence. "Marcus West and Brianna Lewis, you are under investigation for conspiracy to commit fraud, wire fraud, and embezzlement." Marcus turned white. Brianna stumbled backwards. The officer stepped forward again. "You are instructed to come with us immediately." Marcus opened his mouth to argue, but he never got the chance. The handcuffs clicked loudly around his wrists. It echoed like a gunshot in the ballroom. Brianna shrieked, lunging toward him, but 2 officers grabbed her arms. The last thing I saw before they dragged her away was her tear-streaked face turning toward me. Eyes wide. Mouth open. Like she couldn't understand how it had all gone so wrong. I stepped onto the stage. The crowd, still reeling, parted like the Red Sea. I walked slowly, calmly, took the microphone from the officer's hand, smiled at the shocked, breathless room. "Good evening," I said, voice steady. "I know tonight wasn't what you expected." A nervous chuckle somewhere. "But it's a night about new beginnings, and nothing says new beginnings like cleaning house." A few brave souls clapped. Then more. Then louder. Thunderous applause shook the room. I turned slightly toward Marcus as he was led away, his eyes full of hatred and disbelief. "I wish Marcus and Brianna all the best," I said sweetly, "in their new journey, behind bars." I looked straight into the cameras flashing wildly now. "To my investors, shareholders, and friends, rest easy. Effective immediately, I am the sole majority shareholder and CEO of West Enterprises." Another round of shocked gasps and applause. I smiled wider. "Thank you for believing in me. This is only the beginning. I raised my glass. And this time, the toast was real. The news broke before sunrise. Started small. One local news station ran a segment about an unexpected scandal at the prestigious West Enterprises gala. By noon, it was everywhere. Headlines blared across every screen. CEO Marcus West arrested for fraud and embezzlement at his own gala. Mistress revealed. Family betrayal rocks billion-dollar empire. Claire West, from betrayed wife to corporate queen. And my personal favorite. She played dumb, then she played them all. Marcus's mugshot hit the internet like wildfire. He looked nothing like the man who used to strut into boardrooms with $1,000 suits and perfect hair. No, this was a man stripped bare. Eyes wild. Tie crooked. Lips slightly bloody from resisting arrest. Beside him, Brianna's mugshot, mascara running, mouth twisted mid-scream, became an instant meme. Someone added the caption, "When you realize being a homewrecker doesn't come with a pension." I laughed so hard I cried. In less than 24 hours, Marcus was suspended from every board he sat on. Every contract tied to him was terminated, pending investigation. Brianna's influencer brand partnerships dropped her faster than a hot coal. Her banks froze their accounts. Their fall wasn't just public, it was spectacular. Sponsors, colleagues, family, friends. Everyone who once toasted them at parties scrambled to distance themselves like rats abandoning a sinking ship. I received over 100 emails that day. Apologies. Condolences. Panic from investors. Quickly soothed once they realized I was still standing, still strong and holding 78% of the company now. By the end of the week, West Enterprises stock rose 16%. The media couldn't get enough of me. Requests flooded in. Morning shows. Financial interviews. Offers for book deals. Motivational speaking gigs about resilience in leadership. I accepted none of them, not yet. This wasn't about fame. It wasn't about showing the world I survived. It was about showing Sophie that when the world tries to bury you, you rise so high they choke on your dust. Sophie's healing moment. 2 nights after the gala, I found Sophie on the balcony. She was bundled in a thick sweater, staring up at the stars. I joined her silently, wrapping a blanket around both of us. For a long time we said nothing. Then Sophie spoke. "I'm not scared anymore." Her voice was soft but steady. I turned my head and looked at her, really looked. She wasn't the trembling girl curled up on the floor anymore. She was blooming again. Fully. Fiercely. I swallowed the lump in my throat and whispered, "Neither am I." A few days later, a courier dropped off a letter. No return address. I knew immediately who it was from. I sat at the kitchen table, the unopened envelope between my fingers, debating. Sophie glanced at it and shrugged. "He's not worth it," she said simply, returning to her homework. "God, I love that kid." Still, curiosity won out. I opened it. 1 page. Scrawled handwriting. No apology. No remorse. Just pathetic excuses. "You could have forgiven me. We could have worked it out. You'll regret turning everyone against me." I smiled as I tore the letter in half, then quarters, then threw it into the fireplace. The flames swallowed it whole. Just like I had swallowed every lie he ever told me. No regrets. Only freedom. The following weekend I stood in my new office, the top floor suite that once belonged to Marcus. The sun was setting, painting the city in gold and crimson. Sophie's laugh echoed faintly down the hall as she joked with my assistant. Nolan entered quietly, a bottle of champagne in hand. He raised it in a toast. "To new beginnings," he said. I clinked my glass against his. "To choosing ourselves," I said back. We drank. We laughed. We lived. I thought about Marcus and Brianna sometimes. Sitting in their separate jail cells. Wearing state-issued orange jumpsuits. Trading luxury for cement walls and metal toilets. Sometimes karma takes its time. Sometimes if you're patient enough, you get to watch it work front row, champagne in hand, wearing a designer dress. And it tastes sweeter than anything you've ever known. There's a moment, after the dust settles, after the battles are fought, where you realize the world didn't end. It just changed. It was early spring when I finally realized. I wasn't just surviving anymore. I was thriving. With Marcus and Brianna permanently out of the picture, West Enterprises shifted almost overnight. The old board members, the ones who whispered and conspired in shadows, scattered like cockroaches under a bright light. I cleaned house ruthlessly but fairly. Anyone tied to Marcus's schemes? Anyone who knew and stayed silent? Anyone loyal to the company's real mission? Promoted. I restructured the board. Brought in new blood. Smart, ethical, hungry. Diversified our investments. Launched new charity initiatives. West Enterprises wasn't just surviving. It was dominating. Claire West. A new name in business. The media loved it. Business Week named me one of the top 10 most influential women in business that year. Forbes ran a cover story titled, "The Woman Who Turned Betrayal into a $1 billion Empire." I did interviews now, but on my terms. No messy tabloid drama. No crying on cue. Only strength. Only victory. Sophie blossomed like springtime after a brutal winter. Her grades skyrocketed. She joined her school's debate team and crushed her first competition, winning first place with a speech about resilience. I framed the photo of her holding the trophy. Put it right on my desk. She still had scars. So did I. But we weren't ashamed of them. Scars are just proof you survived something meant to destroy you. About 6 months after the gala, Marcus, through some slimy lawyer, tried to sue me from jail. Unfair business practices. Hostile takeover. Emotional damages. It would have been laughable if it wasn't so pathetic. Nolan called me after the paperwork hit his desk. "Want me to crush them the easy way?" he asked. "Or the fun way?" "Fun," I said without hesitation. Nolan chuckled. 3 weeks later, the lawsuit was not just dismissed. Marcus was slapped with additional fraud charges for falsifying documents in the attempt. Another few years tacked onto his sentence. Another nail in his coffin. Brianna didn't even bother trying. Last I heard, she was working a minimum wage job under a fake name, trying to stay out of the media's glare. Couldn't have happened to a better traitor. 6 months after the final court battles ended, I stood on the balcony of my new penthouse. A full-floor marvel overlooking Central Park. Floor-to-ceiling windows. Private elevator. A wine cellar bigger than my first apartment. I had closed the deal personally. Cash. No mortgage. No loans. No strings. Just mine. Paid for with blood, betrayal, and the kind of savage victory you can only earn the hard way. 1 year to the day after the gala, I threw a party. Not a quiet dinner. Not a healing circle or therapy retreat. A party. A massive, glittering, no-expense-spared celebration of survival and success. The theme? New life. Gold invitations. Live band. 5-star catering. Champagne towers so high we had to reinforce the tables. Sophie helped plan every detail. Instead of party favors, guests left with custom gift boxes that read, "Built from the ashes they left me in." Cheesy? Maybe. But every single person at that party knew. I wasn't a victim. I was a phoenix. As I stood at the balcony that night, watching the city lights glitter below and the music pulse behind me, Nolan sidled up, a fresh glass of champagne in hand. "You did it," he said simply. I clinked my glass against his. "No," I corrected, smiling softly. "We did it." I turned to find Sophie laughing with her friends, hair wild in the wind, happiness pouring out of her in waves. I had saved her. I had saved myself. And there, under the stars, surrounded by the life I fought for tooth and nail, I finally felt it. Peace. In the aftermath of fire, sometimes new things grow. Not immediately. Not easily. But if you're patient enough, if you clear the ashes and water the soil, something stronger takes root. Something that can't be burned again. That's where I found myself a year after the gala. Not in the ruins. In the rebirth. The first thing I did with my wealth wasn't buy another car or invest in another skyscraper. It was setting up the Sophie West Foundation. A trust. Built for one reason. To protect my daughter. If something ever happened to me, Sophie would never have to beg, borrow, or apologize for needing help. She would inherit everything. The penthouse, the businesses, the investments. But more than that, she would inherit power. Security. Freedom. The kind no one could steal from her again. I didn't stop there. Because some scars run bigger than just one family. I remembered what it felt like. That night I opened her door. The helplessness. The rage. The humiliation. And I thought about every woman who went through betrayal and didn't have a Nolan. Didn't have money to fight back. Didn't have proof to expose the truth. So I created a second arm of the foundation. The Reclamation Project. A mentorship and legal aid program for women rebuilding their lives after betrayal, divorce, fraud, family sabotage. Lawyers. Therapists. Business advisors. A place where women didn't have to apologize for surviving. Where they could turn pain into power. Just like I did. At first, I didn't want to be the face of it. I wanted the work to stand alone. But people kept calling. Awards committees. Women's leadership groups. Advocacy organizations. I finally relented and agreed to one major interview. A televised sit-down with one of the most respected journalists in the country. She asked all the right questions. And I answered them without anger, without bitterness. Just truth. And strength. At the end of the interview, she leaned forward, voice low, and asked, "If you could say one thing to the people who betrayed you, what would it be?" I smiled. Genuine. Calm. "I would thank them," I said. "Because they thought they were burying me. But really they planted me." Later that night, after the interview aired and the congratulations poured in, I found Sophie on the rooftop of our building. She had her arms folded on the railing, her face turned up toward the stars. Just like that night a year ago. I joined her quietly. We stood there a long time listening to the hum of the city below us. Finally she spoke. "You built something incredible, Mom." I smiled. "So did you." She shook her head, laughing softly. "I just survived." I turned to her, serious. "No, baby. You didn't just survive. You fought. You believed. You lived. That's the difference." Sophie blinked back, tears. "You think Dad and Brianna ever think about us?" I shrugged. "Maybe. Maybe not. It doesn't matter." She frowned. "Why?" I leaned my head against hers. "Because we're too busy living to care." As we stood there, I realized something profound. Revenge feels good. Victory feels better. But peace. Peace is everything. And as the city lights sparkled and the cold night wind danced around us, I knew with absolute certainty. The best revenge wasn't destroying them. It was becoming someone they could never touch again. Freedom doesn't announce itself with fireworks. It doesn't crash through the front door or shout from rooftops. Freedom arrives quietly, swiftly, like the first deep breath after years of drowning. 3 months after the foundation officially launched, I booked 2 first-class tickets. No press. No staff. No plans to network or expand my empire. Just me and Sophie. Mother and daughter. 2 survivors. 2 warriors. We started in Paris. Stood at the top of the Eiffel Tower, the wind whipping our hair, laughter echoing into the city below. We wandered through Rome, eating gelato in the middle of ancient ruins. We sailed the canals of Venice, marveled at the mosaics of Istanbul, climbed the cliffs of Santorini. We lived. We healed. We dreamed new dreams. Everywhere we went I saw her, my daughter, glowing a little brighter. Her laugh was freer. Her eyes were lighter. And somewhere along the way I realized mine were too. I wasn't carrying their betrayal anymore. I wasn't wearing it like a scarlet letter. I was wearing it like armor. Shining. Unbreakable. Beautiful. In Santorini, on a rooftop overlooking the endless blue of the Aegean Sea, a man smiled at me. Not the kind of smile that demands anything. Just a warm, respectful, curious kind of smile. For the first time in a very long time, I smiled back. Not because I needed saving. Not because I needed validation. But because I was open again. Open to life. Open to joy. Open to whatever, or whoever, was meant to find me next. Maybe it would lead somewhere. Maybe it wouldn't. It didn't matter. I was whole either way. One evening, before we were set to return home, I found myself alone on a beach in Bali. The sun melted into the ocean, painting the sky in bruised gold and purple. The sand was cool under my feet. The waves whispered against the shore. I stood there staring out into the endless horizon, and I thought about everything. The betrayal. The heartbreak. The war. The survival. The victory. I thought about the woman I had been. The girl who had once believed love could save anyone. The mother who had been willing to sacrifice herself to keep a broken family whole. And I thought about the woman I had become. A woman who knew now. Love is powerful. But self-respect is sacred. And the only thing more beautiful than surviving the storm is becoming the storm. I closed my eyes, inhaled the salt air, and when I opened them again, I was no longer looking back. I was moving forward. Free. Finally, beautifully free. 5 years later. The day Sophie graduated college, I cried harder than I ever had the night I discovered the betrayal. But this time the tears were sweet. Cleansing. Healing. I stood in the sea of proud parents, clapping wildly, heart-bursting as my daughter, my brave, brilliant, unstoppable daughter, crossed the stage. She wasn't just my baby anymore. She was a woman. A survivor. A warrior in her own right. When she spotted me in the crowd, she lifted her diploma high and grinned, the same wide, fearless smile she wore when she was a little girl building forts in our living room. I blew her a kiss. She caught it midair. And just like that, the past didn't hurt anymore. It was part of our story, but it wasn't the whole story. Not anymore. After the gala, the interviews, the book deals, yes, eventually there was a book. I slowed down. I didn't need to run anymore. I didn't need to prove anything to anyone anymore. I ran my businesses on my terms. Worked only when I wanted. Traveled the world on quiet trips just for the beauty of it. I learned how to enjoy silence again. I learned how to enjoy myself again. And sometimes, when the evenings stretched long and golden, I sat on the terrace of my penthouse, a glass of wine in hand, thinking about everything it took to get here. The battles. The scars. The victories. I wasn't bitter. I wasn't angry. I was grateful. Because without the fire, I would never have found my wings. And yes, because life has a sense of humor, love did find me again. It wasn't fireworks or obsession. It wasn't grand gestures or passionate declarations. It was quiet mornings reading the paper together. It was laughter echoing in the kitchen over burned pancakes. It was a hand reaching for mine at a crowded event, steady and sure. His name was Daniel. A widower. A good man. A patient soul who didn't try to fix me or complete me. He simply stood beside me. We took it slow. On my terms. On my time. Because love, real love, doesn't demand anything from you. It simply waits. Open, kind, fearless. Just like I had learned to be. After Sophie's graduation, we celebrated the way we always did. Simply, honestly. Family. Not the family I had once fought so hard to preserve. A better one. The one we built from the ashes. Nolan came, of course. Older, grayer, but still sharp as ever. He toasted Sophie with a grin and told her she was the best revenge story he ever helped write. We laughed. God, how we laughed. No sadness. No regrets. Only pride. Only gratitude. Later that night, Sophie and I sat side by side on the rooftop of the penthouse. The same spot where we once vowed there would be no more victims. She leaned her head on my shoulder. You did it, Mom, she said quietly. You built a life no one can ever take away. I kissed the top of her head. We did it, I whispered back. And as the city lights blinked like stars below us, I knew. This was the real ending. Not the betrayal. Not the revenge. Not even the glow-up. But this. Freedom. Peace. And this time I wasn't surviving it. I was living it. Fully. Finally. And forever.